If you're an active member of the men's footwear, traditional footwear community, you've probably noticed the trend over the last few years that there are new handmade shoemakers that are popping up left and right. One of the meccas for this new trend is handmade shoes coming out of China. And that's really where this series of videos is going to come into play. This will be the first of at least 3 shoemaker spotlights where I talk about handmade shoes coming out of China. This one's going to talk about Acme Shoemaker. Eventually, I'm going to do a similar segment on shoemakers like Yearn Shoemaker, on a shoemaker called Helen Shoemaker. Some of you may know that as Blazing Wonders on Instagram. I can really lend a lot of value to the community, not just talking about one in a silo, but how do they all compare? We'll start with these shoemaker spotlights. We'll talk about any of the shoes that I have from these shoemakers, and then eventually comparing them all, kind of giving you my educated opinion based off of my own experiences with the shoes about where I think each of them fall into the spectrum of quality, value, and who are they actually being made for. We're going to start here with Acme Shoemaker. Acme Shoemaker is probably one that sits at the highest end of the spectrum when it comes to handmade shoes coming out of China. They're founded in early 2020. They didn't really start to produce or send out any of their shoes until mid to late 2020, and I was lucky enough to get one of those first pairs. They produce full bespoke shoes. They produce made-to-measure shoes, made-to-order shoes, and ready-to-wear shoes. They're all made the same exact way to the same exact spec. The Acme new Marvel series, which is a handmade shoe, it's around $800 versus like $1,600 or $1,700 at the price point. The huge value proposition that really comes into play here is the fact that if you do not need, or you just don't want to wait for that full bespoke or made to measure experience, you can go with a made to order or a ready to wear option from them. And you're still getting the same materials, the same construction types, and the same overall execution that you would one of those bespoke shoes, yet they're right in the $1,750 to $1,800 US range, which, yeah, that's a lot of money. When we talk about the comparables, say, coming out of Japan or England, you're looking 2 or 3, maybe even 4 times that price for a shoe that is made this way. If we look at Acme Shoemaker's Instagram, this is really one of their best catalogs from a standpoint of being able to see everything that they offer. Now that they've grown and expanded that range, they offer a lot of variation and various types of construction. They do everything from hand welding, Norwegian construction, cemented construction on more casual loafers or sneakers, and anything kind of in between. It's still all made by hand, but with that huge range, there's a lot of versatility depending on what you're looking for. You more than likely can probably find it within their catalog. I'm going to be able to show you a number of samples that they sent me here just so that you can kind of see that hands-on variation along with all the options that I own and the options that they sent me, because I'll be honest, they're options that I wasn't necessarily that interested in purchasing myself, but it was still a great opportunity to be able to see all of these side by side. Let's start there. I'm going to start with the pairs of shoes that I've purchased from them over the years. It'll really be a quick run through just in order, chronological order. My oldest pair to my newest pair, and then we'll jump into some of the samples. I'll share my thoughts on where I think their biggest opportunities for growth are, as well as my overall thoughts and what to expect in the future about this series. My first pair of shoes from Acme Shoemaker that was delivered in probably right around this time of the year in 2020 was this color 4 shell cordovan split toe derby. It had a pie crust apron, skin stitch split toe, and I really can't believe this shoe is already 2 years old. The next order very quickly following that was this single monk pie crust split toe derby, as well in a hatch embossed shell cordovan. I really loved the fact that they were willing to accommodate this style. After this, I went into 2 very similar styles. This is a 5 eyelet plain toe derby. This is in mahogany shell cordovan. This is the first time I tried their N83 last. Then I went with a 3 eyelet chukka and this has the 270-degree Norwegian construction. So as you can see, the types of construction here that I started to acquire at this point has expanded a bit from Acme. Next, after this, I went with a hole-cut Chelsea boot in a dark brown hatch embossed calfskin. This is a fully hand-welded shoe. This was actually a sample that they had available in my size, and I couldn't resist it, and it's one of my favorite pairs from them. I digress though. Let's get back on track. After the hole-cut Chelsea boot, this is really where I started to experiment and really expand my horizons with Acme as far as the styles that I was comfortable with and the level of confidence I had in their ability to execute those. So this is a hole-cut style pattern Lazy Man in natural shell cordovan. They did a slight burnishing and patina on it. This is honestly maybe my favorite shoe from them so far. Next, I went with an option I didn't have in my collection from Acme or anyone else, and that was a full strap penny loafer. This is color 6 Horween shell cordovan, and another pair that I'm really loving. This is one of the great benefits with a shoemaker like Acme, whether they're made in China or anywhere else. The more that you develop and build that relationship, the more and more you're able to really critique and refine the shoes so that they're exactly what you expect and want, if not more. Is this double Norwegian split toe derby, which is in a dark brown hatch embossed shell cordovan. It is on their new version of the N83 last, and I'm really thrilled I had the opportunity to jump on this and purchase this from them. Now moving into the sample pairs, we've got a couple variations of shoes that I already have. We have the peccary version of that double Norwegian derby. This one does not have a split toe, but this is going to be a slight variation on a few of the Norwegian constructions that I have in a different configuration. So it's definitely cool to see how they're able to execute this on a different last and a different overall kind of silhouette, still creating that same execution and quality. Here we have a butterfly loafer in this navy calfskin, but it definitely has a bit of a twist, and you can still begin to see the signature style and aesthetic growing within Acme's catalog. This is a double monk strap in hatch grain calfskin from Horween with a custom patina. Very, very impressive, all things considered, looking at the price point, looking at all the details. It's great work. This is a chukka boot in a reverse olive suede. This is a half Norwegian construction as well. One of the interesting things about a few of these pairs is when I looked at them online, when you look at them from afar, you can't touch and feel them. The appreciation for it is, hey, it looks nice, but it's not something I would have any interest in. When I got this pair of shoes in from them and I was able to examine them up close, I really gained a high level of appreciation for all of these details and how well they're executed and how well the harmony is kind of built throughout all of these details. It doesn't look like it's overwhelming on any of the shoes, and it's pretty well balanced, even though this one isn't quite my taste. This last pair of chukkas is a sneaker. This is cemented construction, and this definitely was not part of anything that I would have had my eye on. But once I had this and I was able to kind of play around with it for a few weeks, I really am liking this. I don't know if it's something I would ever buy, but I'm definitely a lot closer to thinking about buying it than I would have been if I never had the opportunity to see this in person. Some of the biggest opportunities from my perspective are a few things. First, the shoe trees. They do a very good job from day one of offering value in the sense of they include these shoe trees. When they started, the shoe trees were hinged, fully lasted, and just beautifully executed. It seems that they've switched to the double barrel, spring shoe trees as opposed to the hinged shoe trees. I still think made to measure needs to be a hinged shoe tree. The other piece with this shoe tree, some of the more recent pairs, they kind of put a very high gloss finish on it. While this may seem very nitpicky from a practical usage perspective, I wasn't really able to use them the same way I used all my other shoe trees. After I wore these shoes for a full day, the shoe absorbs moisture. You go to put the shoe tree in, and that high gloss finish literally would not let me put the shoe tree in. I've since sanded that down. Not a problem. It works perfectly now. It's an expensive shoe. We're talking over $2,500 if you were to pay for this, and you shouldn't have to sand down the shoe tree. They should probably have just done a little more kind of research and development and made sure that if they're going for an aesthetic change with that, it's not going to impact the functionality. Confirmed with me that they've identified that, fixed it. It's not going to happen in the future, but the biggest opportunity overall, I think, is their communication. For me, I have, the privilege of kind of being in a platform, being in the situation that I am, and I have some established communication channels with them. I've definitely experienced some feedback from folks that aren't me who have said they don't have that same experience, and sometimes the communication can be intermittent and it can go a long time without getting responses. Hopefully that won't happen, but if it does, my only advice can be to continue to be persistent if you truly want that shoe. But I can completely understand if a customer service experience detail like that may turn you off. Keep an eye out. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to have a video like this about Yearn Shoemaker, about Helen Shoemaker, and then we're going to start to compare the three of these. If anybody else out there has any other handmade shoes from China that they think should be a participant in this, let me know. I'll reach out to the shoemaker, see if we can't get a sample or two, and we'll include it in this series. If you have any questions or if you have any of your own experiences with Acme Shoemaker that you'd like to share, definitely put those in the comments. Really appreciate and really am excited to hear about those. Love to see the growth that Acme has had over the first 2, almost 3 years now, and excited to share these other handmade shoes with you in the coming weeks. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next time.